That's why it's back here. We just did a motion on it.
Good afternoon. It's 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. We will call the City Council meeting of the City of New Ulm to order. Item number 1, consent agenda. Councilors, what are your wishes?
I'll offer a motion to approve those.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Item number 2.1, a tree service license.
I'll offer the motion to approve the issuance of tree license for Dwayne Roloff, DBA Dues Crew, 814 7th North Street, New Ulm, for the period beginning April 20th, 2022, ending June 30th, 2022, subject to compliance with all city and state requirements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
Why such a short period? 2 months?
The new license would be July 1st.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is carried. Item number 2.2, Raffles gambling permit for New Ulm Girls Fastpitch Association.
Motion to approve the issuance of a lawful gambling permit for New Ulm Girls Fastpitch Softball Association to conduct raffles gambling at the Jefferson Elementary School, 318 South Payne Street on Saturday, June 18th, 2022.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3.1, summary of business conducted during board and commission meetings. Councilor Schultz.
I can start off. I missed the EDA meeting, but as a result of that meeting, there was a task force that set up that we're working on daycare pretty heavily at this point. And my task, Mayor got tasked too at that meeting, but my task was to contact all the current daycare facilities to see if any of them have an interest in expanding with financial help from yet to be determined. And so I'm about halfway through that. I've contacted all of them. I've heard back from about half, and so far all the half of the 6 or 7 that we have are very interested in looking at potential expansion or a second facility, or even selling their facility and buying a bigger facility. So got some really nice interest so far. The other task that I had was to look at different funding sources, and if the school, the county, the city, the EDA would be willing to look at putting some money into a pot to help retain and keep some of our current daycare facilities that might have need an egress window or something like that. So I did hear from the county EDA yesterday and got a very positive response from them that says we have money now and we'd have money next year. So that was also part of our discussion, is make sure that we maybe put some money in next 23 budget for this potential fix for some daycare stuff. So hearing some really good things about that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Oh, that's a great update. Thanks.
Yeah.
The Park and Rec did not have enough agenda items, so they did not meet. But Heritage Preservation last night did have a busy meeting. They actually approved 4 items on Main Street. Number 1 being Inspired, 119 North Minnesota. They're going to do a facade restoration, nice looking building. At 110 North Minnesota, that's the northern part of the, excuse my voice, Herberger's building for Sweet Haven. They're going to do a facade restoration, new windows, lighting, signage. 202 North Minnesota, that is one of the Besmacheks owns the building. They're going to repair the rear facade of the building, cover it with metal. And the big item on the agenda was Mr. Eric Bodie was in for 513 First North and 21 North Minnesota Street. Rear demolition of the building. That's the rear of the Retzloff's building, and behind Novera, the old receiving station for Retzloff's. The board took a close look at it. They went over section 9.19. There's really no historical factors to those 2 buildings. There was no architectural to save, and Mr. Bodie will be coming forward to the HPC with a plan on his restoration of the rear of the building. So they had a busy evening, so a lot of stuff going on Main Street. That's it.
Excellent. 2 super wonderful updates. Anything, Councilor Mack?
As far as zoning, we're going to be meeting next week, and we'll be conducting interviews, working on the comp plan, so.
Fantastic. And Mayor Sweeney.
The CVB is really doing good. They're not only the tax income is bouncing back, but occupancy. We meet tomorrow. We're going to try and bring back something, a separate tourism committee that existed. I think it disbanded in 2010 or so, and that was like a spring cleanup. I figure out something to do. I've gotten several emails from people saying, "What happened to our nice, clean town?" Well, that you always hear that in springtime when it's not so pretty. But the CVB's taking a lead on that, so things are good. I'm just amazed at how well the lodging tax is doing.
I think it went up 35,000.
Yeah, and you can not even counting from last year and the last
Yeah,
2 years,
yeah.
but just from their previous records,
Yeah.
it's beating or tying.
Signs we need another hotel, perhaps. Well, thank you for those updates. Item number 4.1, lawful gambling premises permit for New Ulm Baseball Association.
Council, for the resolution, waive the reading, approve the issuance of lawful gambling premises permit for the New Ulm Baseball Association to conduct lawful gambling at Kaiserhof 221 North Minnesota Street, New Ulm.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All right. Assistant Director Amira, please call the roll.
Counselor Matt?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 4.2, second consideration of ordinance number 22-052, fifth series amending section 5 of the city code. This was in regards to update regarding some of the liquor licensing and regulations.
I'll go ahead and offer a motion to approve the second consideration and adopt the ordinance 22-052, fifth series, City of New Ulm, Brown County, Minnesota, amending the section 5 of the code relative to liquor licensing and regulation.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
And then by allowing this, this will be for our distillery, if I'm reading correctly. Yep.
Correct. Yep, updating the verbiage.
Okay.
Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion is carried. Item number 4.3, second consideration of ordinance number 22-053, fifth series amending section 4 of the city code.
I'll offer a motion to conduct second consideration of the ordinance of number 22-053, fifth series amending section 4 of the city code of the city of New Ulm relative to business regulation of the sale of tobacco.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Again, this was just to increase the age of the tobacco sales to what is currently state statute. Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion is carried. Item number 5.1, retainer agreement for city attorney and prosecution services.
Council President, councilors, before you have the proposed agreements from Flaherty and Hood for both city attorney and prosecution services. Blythe and Barron's gave their notice of termination of their agreement, and that agreement will end November 10th, 2022. So with that notice, we released an RFP for legal services. We did receive 2 proposals. One proposal was for city attorney services alone, and the other proposal was for both services. So we decided to move forward with the firm that submitted for both services. Before you have the agreements, after reviewing the agreements, I didn't see anything in there that really had any red flags or anything that I felt needed to be changed. Reaching out to some of the other cities that they work with, nothing but positive comments. This firm also works with the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities. I have worked with them since I've been in New Ulm, going to those meetings, and they're very reputable across the board.
Chris, can you give me an example of some of the other cities they represent?
Not off the top of my head, no. Not off the top of my head, but I know they have
But it's some larger
22
cities, right?
cities across.
And you said you had looked and
Correct. I just checked the website, and as I recall, Winona was on there, Moorhead, Wilmer, and a lot of cities a similar size in New Ulm. Actually, I was surprised at the number of cities they represented, so.
Yeah, about 22 in total, and we would be the second city they would be doing prosecution for. The only other city they do that for is Winona.
Chris, do you feel they're staffed enough to handle our needs?
Yep. So we will have a dedicated person for prosecution, and we'll have one city attorney and then 2 assistant city attorneys.
So we won't see any change really in our service?
No.
It should remain the same?
Should remain the same, yes. I guess, well, the only thing that would be different is that they will be in attendance through Zoom for our council meetings unless we specifically ask them to be here if there's a specific hot button issue we want them here for. But they will be available through Zoom, phone call, email, and part of, their service is they'll get back to us within 24 hours, if not sooner, with any questions that we get them, so.
Mike, the way law is done these days, can they effectively do this from distance as opposed to needing to be right there next to somebody?
No, I believe they can effectively do it by distance. And I think the pandemic has kind of proved that. Like I said, I haven't set foot in a courtroom since the pandemic started, but I attend hearings, on a regular basis. They're all done by Zoom. Obviously, in the courtroom, the jury trials and things, they'll have to be here, but a lot of the routine things, they'll appear by Zoom. And they'll be appearing by Zoom for most of the civil affairs for the city also. So it seems to be working in other cities. I don't know why it won't work here.
Madam Chair, I got some questions that, it sounds like they're going to appear by Zoom or come in person at the next meeting?
They'll be here in person at the
Be here
next
in
meeting,
person,
yes.
okay. So I want to walk through some of the questions that I have on the contract, and some of it's just clarification. But as some of our discussion was, are they going to have a local office in our community? And it doesn't sound like it, but.
At this point, no. For prosecution, they may look at that, but what I did is I've offered them to use, we have a conference room upstairs that they can use on the Tuesday here if they need a space. And if they feel the volume of the cases they have to work is steady enough, they will look at potentially opening an office. But to start, they'll probably use our conference room upstairs.
Because having been working in probation and working with a city attorney, county attorney for 30 years, court doesn't work just perfectly. You don't have just city stuff for the morning and then county stuff in the afternoon. It can be all intermingled, and so I'm having a hard time seeing somebody from the metro sitting here and going, oh, I got one case at 9, another one at 11:30, one at 3. So I hope they understand that, but right now, you're right, a lot of it is Zoom, but Zoom may not be here forever. They've talked about keeping part of it, but we'll see. How does this contract compare rate-wise with what we're paying now?
So
I know it's gonna be an increase.
actually, it really depends on the number of hours, because when you look at the general municipal fees, it's $160 an hour. And again, that's technically cheaper than the hour, than the third-party hourly rate that we have with Buth and Barron's, was that, correct me if I'm wrong, is $225 or $235, somewhere around there.
Not even sure what it is. So.
And then, there's no retainer fee. We're not paying a retainer fee. So it's really purely what we use per hour. And hence why we would also, Zoom is a better option, because if they do have to come here, it's 50% of the rate for travel time to get here. So by doing it by Zoom, we're just paying them for the time that they're on.
So that maybe kind of goes to my next point is the city prosecutes misdemeanors and petties, and no juveniles. So you're talking all the DWI, first-time DWI offenders. You're talking domestic assault cases. You're talking disorderly conduct cases. So I know our department worked, pretty closely with the city attorney's office and county attorney's office when there's cases. So I'm wondering what their philosophy, and that's one of the questions that I have, is prosecutors have a lot of discretion. Am I right, Mr. Boyle? A lot of discretion. So what will their philosophy be on prosecuting DWI offenders, on domestics, on assaults, disorder? I mean, I really want, so that's a question I have for them. So if you can pass it on. I think we really need to know that, because they could go one way or the other, or somewhere in between. They could overly prosecute, or maybe, and not be willing to plea on everything, and everything's gonna go to trial, and now our fees are way up here. Or they could go the other way and say, we're pleading everything, we're never gonna go to trial, and here's a small little fee you're gonna get every month. So, I mean, it really kind of depends on where, we've been so used to the same law firm for so long that we don't know what another system might look like. So I think we need to ask that question. I'm assuming it means, it mentions, Chris, you as a city administrator, quite a bit through this document. I'm assuming that means city manager, right?
Yep.
Okay, then I want to take your attention to 5.6 or 5.7, both of those two, and I'll just read them in brief. In the agreement, it says, the firm and the city may discuss and enter into alternative fee arrangements, including a monthly retainer. So does the city, I couldn't find a definition in the document for what the city means. Does that city mean you, Chris, or does the city mean us as a council? Or
So
both?
the city in this instance would be me, because I would be acting on your behalf in the negotiation process. So everything would come to me and be approved by city council.
Okay, so you would be in the negotiation part.
Yep.
But the council would approve. So I think I'd like to see that in here.
Yep.
And then the next one is basically the same thing. It says the firm may adjust its hourly rates or monthly retainer as applicable annually with at least 30 days written notice to the city, which I understand if they're gonna raise their rates annually, that's fine. So you have the same understanding, they'd negotiate with you, it would come back to us for approval on those rates.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
I think that's all I had for questions. I'm excited about having the same law firm handling both, so I hope nobody thinks that I'm negative on this, because I'm absolutely not. I just had clarification questions, so, thank you.
And then the only clarification, for the criminal side of things, we do have a retainer for the criminal side. It's $67.50 a month.
Okay, yeah, I just
So-
printed one, because it's
Yeah.
basically two documents that are almost identical.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess I have one more question. Are they familiar with working, they're going to be doing our utility company also?
Yes.
So they've got familiar working with,
Yep, they've worked with other utilities before.
so with all the utility laws, so.
Because remember, as they work on cases, if it looks like it's a gross misdemeanor case, they're gonna kick it to the county. Same thing, the county's looking, if they're looking at a file and they're like, oh, this is a misdemeanor, this is not a gross, then they gotta send it back over the other way.
Yep.
So there's a lot of back and forth between the two. Does our counselor have any comments on the contract? I know it puts you in a tough spot, but I'm gonna ask it anyway.
I don't really have any, we weren't asked to formally
Right.
review the contract for the city. I have looked it over, and I was going to point out too, as the city manager did, that the criminal part of it is on a retainer. So, the amount of time they put in on criminal side, the fee is set regardless. That could, I don't know if they take that in consideration when they're, considering plea agreements or not. It's,
Right.
but
It may take that was my other question are they talking about what they want to charge for in 6 months? They'll have another fee in 2023. I mean, are they talking about what an increase might look like in 6 months already, or no?
No.
That'd be another
I think
question I'd
that's
like to
hard
have.
for anybody to project what it's going to be like
Yeah.
at this point.
I'd like
But
to know maybe what they're thinking anyway.
But just based on what we've already been provided, the 160, is reasonable. So, I mean, I couldn't imagine.
I mean, we had them work on a couple minor things, recently, and we got a bill for $670, like for a fairly big thing that we had to deal with, and it reasonable at the end of the day. So
So we wouldn't have to approve this tonight.
Well,
Be
if you want them to
preferences.
start May 1st, yes.
Start May 1st.
You don't have to start May 1st because our contract with the current people goes to
Yeah,
November.
you can table
So
it.
I'm not going to feel pressured into doing that, but I don't know if any of my questions are imperative enough for a decision. I don't know.
I guess we'll leave it up if somebody would like to make a motion.
I'm okay making a motion on it and authorize the city manager to execute retainer services or Flattery and Hood, PA, for city attorney services effective May 1, 2022, and prosecution services effective June 1, 2022.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
I just think I want some answers before I'm going to vote yes on this, so, but it might pass without me anyway. But
Any
So
additional?
I'm not against it, I just want clarification, and I think taxpayers deserve that.
I think there is clarification in here. I mean, it is pretty, I went through and has the prices of the retainer, and it looks very standard, and it seems, in my opinion, it seems clear. To try to speculate what the rate changes will be, I leave that, and I have that trust in the city manager to work with the firm and make sure that he's working in the city and the taxpayers' best interests.
I think in the past, since I've been on the council the last 7 years, we've gone out a couple times and, we've only gotten one or two tops. And again, we've got someone to take care of both services, on it. So, and we've got 16 pages here of their contract and kind of outlining how they're going to do it. And we're hearing they've got 22 other cities. I'm confident to try it.
I'd feel more comfortable in a yes vote if at least those two sections that talk about the alternative fee arrangement rate adjustments are clarified, that it does require city council approval.
I mean, we can look at that, but, the charter kind of states that too. The city attorney is appointed by the council, so those changes would have to be brought to you.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I can ask them to put that in there, you can say amend, barring, your changes, like you with some of the other contracts.
Could you adjust the motion with those stipulations for approval, or would it be best to have the contract change and then have us revote, reconvene before May 1st and vote?
I would say with those changes, because it's only those two minor language changes, you're not changing rates, scope of service, or anything. It's just having council approve the rate adjustment and, I forget what was it, rate adjustment and having a retainer fee, or schedule of fees.
It's always in the contract, which always, every time there's an issue, we always come back to, what does the contract say? What does the contract say? You signed it, you approved it, that's what we're stuck with. And again, I'm not saying I'm against it at all, I always feel better when I know, I wish they would have been here, they should have been here for this meeting. But,
Chris, are they going to come back with a new contract then for 2023 at the end of the year here?
Nope. This contract is good until one of us terminates it within 60 days.
yeah, I see we have a 60-day out clause. So
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah, so this
But I
term
mean-
is in place.
But, say August, we realize we could go out again for an RFP, for next year, for
If you
2023, if we would
wanted-
so choose to.
You would have to give them 60 days notice that you would be going out for RFP.
Okay.
Or 60 days to terminate, but if you go out for RFP, you're
Yeah.
kind of on that ledge.
So are those two pieces in the motion or not?
I'm fine.
Currently, the motion does not have any alterations to items 5.6 or 5.7.
7.6 and 7.7.
Sorry. And the second piece, sorry.
And 5.6 and 5.7 in the
In the second.
prosecution. Yep.
So
I'm fine amending it to include the changes, 5.6, what was it, 7.
7.6
7.6
and then,
and 7.6 and 7.7.
7.7.
In the attorney legal services and prosecution services agreements respectively.
Correct.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second with the amended. Any additional discussion? I'll ask for a roll call.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Schultz?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, that motion is carried. Item number 5.2, 2022 appointment of the city council.
Council President, Councilors, before you have the appointments for city attorney. So Robert Scott would be our city attorney effective May 1st, 2022. Mike Flaherty would be our prosecuting attorney, and that would be effective June 1st of 2022. Carolyn Brown would be an assistant city attorney, and Brooke Hine would be an assistant city attorney. And because of the split between civil and prosecution, Bleth and Barons would still be listed as assistant city attorneys through May 31st of 2022 for the prosecution side.
Would this mean that Bleth and Barons would have representation here at the meetings through the end of May? Do you know that answer?
No, it would
No.
be, because Flaherty and Hood would be our city attorney starting
Okay.
May 1st.
Starting May 1st, and then this is just
All
a
assistants,
transition?
yep.
Okay.
Motion to approve the 2022 appointment of the city council, of the city attorney, and assistant city attorneys per Charter Section 64 as follows, as just stated.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
Would have done.
Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion is carried. Item number 5.3, 2023 budget calendar and scheduled budget work session.
For motion to approve the 2023 budget calendar and set the date for budget work session Tuesday, August 16th, 2022, following the regular city council meeting in the City Hall Council Chambers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item number 5.4, accept transfer of property and approve purchase agreement.
Dave Schnobrick, Community Development Director. Madam President, members of the City Council, the subject property that we'll be talking about is legally described as Lot 1, Block 1, Airport Industrial Park, 3rd Edition. Street address of that property is 2215 Jacob Street. The property is located north of Walmart and west of Jacob Street, and it is currently farmed. And in your agenda packet, there is an aerial photo showing the location of the property. City staff is recommending that the City Council approve a purchase agreement that would result in the transfer of this property to the city at no cost from the current property owner, which is Streams Edge Properties LLC. Some of you may remember that this past September 21, 2021, the city of New Ulm sold this property to Streams Edge. Streams Edge is a holding company for property and land purchases made by Dayton Freight, which is a privately owned trucking company. The proposed project that would have taken place on that parcel of property would have consisted of an office and a warehouse building. In March of this year, the city was notified by Streams Edge that they no longer had a need for this property due to changes in the New Ulm market. That notice was likely the result of Streams Edge purchase of an existing trucking company that had property and a facility in Cortland. The name of that company is Valley Cartage. As you drive into Cortland, they're on the right-hand side. And that purchase took place on March 11th of this, about a month ago. So Stream's Edge is no longer has a need for the property. At the present time, there's no other known parties that are interested in the property that we're aware of. And the property is going to be subject to pending assessments since we're doing street improvements abutting the property in the coming construction season. As a result, they have offered the property to the city at no cost. If approved by the city council, the transaction would take place prior to May 2nd, 2022. Now, the purchase agreement states that the property is being sold as is, so it's in its present condition. The seller will also warrant that there are no liens or encumbrances attached to the property since its purchase. The seller also is to be absolved of any and all future real estate taxes, special assessments, and fees now or which may in the future encumber the property. If the city council proceeds with this acquisition, the city manager and finance director should be authorized to sign the purchase agreement on behalf of the city. The one change that will impact the city financially is that the city will have to assume the responsibility for those assessment payments. And that is something that would take place, over the next 10 years typically. That would conclude the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Schnobrick.
One question for Mr. Schnobrick. I know we're going to assume those costs. It's not as if we're being given the property back. I mean, somehow, the way that works out there, Dave, so we'll try to absorb that, or will we still offer that property at as is for that cheap price, and we're going to absorb those assessments, or a future buyer on these 6 acres
Well,
would assume it?
the sale of the property will ultimately, the cost will have to be approved by the city council. So it would be our intent to, sell the property at the highest price possible.
So we would essentially accept the property back and then remarket it.
Correct.
What kind of assessment fees are we going to be absorbing the next 10 years on?
That parcel, I estimated at $230,000 was the assessment amount.
And we wrote that into the development agreement, so that was the max that they would have had to have paid.
But typically, that city would recoup those assessment costs in a future land sale.
I'm familiar with this area because, on the zoning, we redid that, and I think, it's going to be an avenue to connect to Thompson Road, and I think it's kind of, here's an opportunity yet that, if we have the land and we're putting the utilities and, it just shows that our industrial park is ready to go. And, it's one of them, it's kind of a catch-22. I mean, you'd like to work with the people. I mean, I'm just glad we spent a couple of years on it trying to recruit them to come here and, but they're doing their due diligence and another opportunity came up. But I think I would be fine with moving forward.
I'll go ahead and offer a resolution, waive the reading, accepting the transfer of Lot 1, Block 1 Airport Industrial Park, 3rd Edition, to the City of New Ulm at no purchase cost, because I don't think free is never free, and approve the purchase agreement for this purpose.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
This should be a resolution.
Yep.
Yes.
That's what I said? I think that's what I said.
Oh, did he say motion or okay, resolution?
Yep.
Any additional discussion? I'm just going to say that, if the property's sold once, it's being developed, it's going to be in a desirable area, and I think remarketing.
And it would be kind of in a more desirable area now that we're putting the street in. We can actually sell the property because there's access to it. And, and we can divide up the 6 acres to smaller parcels if we need to. So,
So we have options.
Yep.
Okay. Any additional discussion? Assistant Director Amira, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Christian,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz,
Yes.
President Becker,
Yes, motion's carried. Thank you, Mr. Schnobrick. Item 5.5, Min Ice Parklet application, and just to make a note, this will be a resolution as well.
Council President, Councilors, before you have our first parklet application for downtown. It's been about a year since you approved the application or the application process. Min Ice has submitted their application. They will be taking up 2 parking spots in front of their store. They did have 65% of first floor property or first floor owners approve or sign the petition for the parklet. We only require a 60% petition rate. They'd have submitted the fee, their certificate of liability insurance, and so we would like to have you approve this so they can put it together. They are looking at another option because the initial parklet they wanted to construct is way over budget, so they're going to look at another option to get that there, and then look at building a more permanent, it's not the right word, but a more permanent-ish type structure for the following year. And we are going to ask if they can put a garbage can in there as well, a trash receptacle, which I'm sure Min Ice would do, but we will ask.
I'm glad to hear that because the garbage cans in front of the chamber and then on Min Ice's side are just filled with their stuff.
Yep.
And so that's good.
And it's something we've been talking about for years. I bet 5 years, 6 years when we first started talking about parklets. So it'll make our town a little unique, a little different, a little cool. So I'm going to absolutely offer a resolution, waive the reading for a parklet at Minnesota ICE, EIS, 10 North Minnesota Street, and authorize the use of a public right-of-way for the installation of the parklet with conditions outlined in the application, including a garbage can.
I'm going to second that.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
I just have one comment. I did receive one correspondence, and I responded to the individual that they were against it, taking parking away from that side of the street. I did respond that, we had set at 60%, and they came in at the 65%, so therefore, I'll support it. But I did receive one correspondence against it.
Just, I'm going to clarify with the city attorney, because this is in the city right away, anybody can sit on that. It doesn't have to be a customer. Is that correct? Just so the public is aware of that.
Any additional discussion? I think it's great, and I can't wait to see it. Assistant Director Amira, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Christian,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz,
Yes.
President Becker,
Yes, that motion's carried. Item number 5.6, Public Works Equipment Replacement.
So this is, Council President, Councilors, this is a very odd request. So all the equipment here is scheduled to be replaced in 2023, but because of how bids are working right now and not getting vehicles in a timely manner, we are requesting to put the bids in now, knowing we're not going to have to pay until 2023, so we can get the vehicles in 2023 instead of in a future year. So all these items here will be in the budget coming up, but in order to get in the queue so we can actually get these vehicles and equipment in 2023, we need to get on the list now.
I'll authorize the city manager to prepare specifications, secure bids or quotes, or use state bid contracts to acquire equipment and vehicles for 2023 with the estimated cost of $472,365.
I'll second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
just a pat on the back for staff and city managers to do this type of thing. We know that sometimes it's taking months and months and crazy amount of time to get vehicles and get things that we need to run our city. So thank you for looking forward on this project.
Yes, yeah, it's nice to see you're thinking ahead.
I'm gonna just one more comment, you know, I mean, we've got a 1977 International bucket truck, so we've got a lot of years of service out of some
Spend our
of
money
these,
out of
so-
that one. Jeff's nodding back there.
Yep. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion does carry. Item number 5.7, B&L Bar and the Retz Alley closure, Cinco de Mayo.
The only difference, the only change to this is there will be another condition. There will have to be separation from, let's go, the Retz crowd and the B&L crowd per state rules. So we'll add that to the resolution.
Madam President, City Councilors, I would like to add one other thing. After discussion about this item with the Fire Chief Mako, there were concerns from the last time that the alley was closed over Bachfest weekend. They actually had a food vendor truck blocking the end of the alley, which created some concerns for emergency vehicle access and whatnot. So we would also request that the ends of the alleys are not blocked with semi-permanent objects. So just movable barricades or something of that manner. But just so if is an emergency, it's easy to get access to that location.
Will there be a place for a food truck to fit back there that wouldn't block the roadway?
Well, previously it was parked on Minnesota Street, blocking the alley entrance. So we're requesting that that's not allowed this time.
I get it, that's fine.
He's going to be parking it in his parking spots behind the B&L. That's where the food truck's going to be.
I'll offer the resolution, waive the reading to temporarily close the alley next to the establishments for Cinco de Mayo on Friday, May 6th, 2022, and Saturday, May 7th, 2022, beginning Friday at 5 p.m. until 11 a.m. on Sunday, and authorize the extension of the B&L bar liquor license and the Res liquor license into the closed alley area on the requested dates, subject to conditions, and with the added condition of separation for the alcohol. And not blocking the alley right away.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Assistant Director Amir, please call the roll.
Counselor Mack,
Yes.
Counselor Christian,
Yes.
Counselor Schultz,
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, that motion is carried. Thank you. With no additional business, this meeting will be adjourned as we move into a work session to follow.
5 minute break, class.
You got it.